Frankie Fremont, and I wanted to tell you about how I celebrated my 16th birthday with an aviation trifecta, where I managed to fly a first solo in a helicopter and a Cessna 172, along with receiving my private pilot glider license, all within 24 hours of turning 16 in this spring 2020 edition of AviNation magazine. Driving to the airport that morning had felt longer than it ever had, with the nerves and adrenaline pumping high. I had to sit and wait for a while for the person in the aircraft before me to return. And so sitting there, quiet, alone with my thoughts, the nerves intensified. One tradition at my flight school is that the student has to wash the helicopter before they solo. I had wondered why, but I now realized it calmed me down a lot. Before I knew it, it was time to get up in the air for the helicopter solo. I went through the pattern 4 times, enjoying it more and more each time. But once I returned, there was no time to waste, no celebration, barely even time for a picture. I went straight to the fixed wing office for my pre-flight calculations, then went up for 3 patterns in the Cessna, and again, felt more comfortable each pass, but quickly realized the mental fatigue was setting in, and I was only about halfway through my events. Once I was back from the Cessna patterns, there was again no time wasted. We immediately sped off for the 4-hour drive to the glider port in California, meanwhile studying the entire way. Once there, it was strictly business. I met the pilot examiner the next morning, who was extremely nice, but the fact that he determined the fate of if I'm speaking here right now or not was still incredibly nerve-wracking. But I kept my head on straight and just breathed, and was able to pass the oral and flying portions of the check ride. So how did I get here? It wasn't easy, but it's worth it in the end. It all started when I was 14. My whole life had revolved around baseball. My drive, determination, and competitive nature had led me to a couple times playing with USA Baseball and a newfound understanding of perseverance. Unfortunately, at one of those USA events, I broke my elbow. I always loved aviation, so to fill my time, I took a glider intro ride. Coincidentally, I had just found my true passion without realizing it. I loved it so much, so my family made the commitment to travel 8 hours round trip, several weekends a month, so I could train for my glider solo at 14. My next goal would be to get my private pilot glider license as soon as the FAA allowed, my 16th birthday. I later flew orientation rides in both a Cessna and a helicopter. I fell in love with both aircraft, and we continued to hear that I had a certain amount of natural stick and rudder skills. The FAA doesn't allow powered solos until your 16th birthday though. Shortly after, a joke started around the house about not only finishing my glider private pilot's license on my 16th birthday, but also flying my first solo in both a Cessna and a helicopter, an achievement that may never have been done before. Soon enough, my competitive nature took over, turning the joke into a reality. I first tackled the FAA written exam for my glider license, which, trust me, wasn't very easy at all, with over 100 hours of prep put into it. Thinking the tough part was over, that being the written exam, I began preparation for the check ride. I was wrong though, because the prep was even more intense. For around 3 weeks straight, my routine never changed. Wake up, go to the airport, fly in the morning, ground school all afternoon, and study on my own at home until I went to bed. Then both weekend days included 8 hours of glider ground school down in California. Sanity felt lost. Free time was non-existent, and the fatigue always seemed to worsen, but it was well worth it in the end. A challenge this big would not have been possible without those who helped me, like the instructor who sacrificed his time to fly with me on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and New Year's Eve. The owners of 702 helicopters who supported my goal when everyone else thought it was impossible. And most importantly, my parents, who lived it with me. Because of this, I wanted to succeed as a way to thank everyone involved. Even though this may have sounded incredibly difficult, I can assure you it's worth all the effort, especially if flying is what you love doing. Having accomplished this goal, I am now a believer that you can do anything you set your mind to, and that with God, anything is possible. So whatever your passion is, push yourself to succeed, and if you haven't found your passion yet, no big deal, you'll find it, even if it's a coincidence. With that being said, I think I found my passion, and I hope to set another aviation goal for my 17th birthday. Stay safe, and I hope to see you in the sky someday.